Germantown. We were a little long. Yeah, it's like the Titanic, right? While the visitors are getting set, I want to go ahead and introduce everybody and say hello to the group here. We did bring a microphone, but we may be a small enough group not to need to pass that around. Have not decided yet. So if it seems like you can't hear, let me know, and I will mic our guests. I think most of you know me, but my name is Laura Sievert. I'm the Executive Director of Arts in Quincy, your Arts Council right here in Quincy. And we're just so thrilled to welcome these guests from the Illinois Arts Council here today, just to hear about our community and our needs and how we can interact better with the state to meet those goals. We've had a full day of seeing some of our biggest organizations and some of the amazing impacts they do. And I will tell you that for me, I know what you guys do every day, right? I've got a pretty good sense. I might talk about it just a little bit on the regular. But to see it today on display has been so inspiring because we're doing more programming, more outreach to a community that is so far from the next available arts and culture. I just think we'll definitely give these guys a round of applause, but I want to give you guys a round of applause because it's amazing that we do this work. It is meaningful and it makes Quincy a place to live. So big round of applause to everybody who hosted today. We did not get, MK Pritzker was not able to join us today, but we do have Quincy's own Alex Scott, who works in the governor's office, going to probably relay some great things back. Absolutely. So I did want to point out that he was able to make this today. We've talked a lot about the organizations that we have here in Quincy today, and I'm so glad to see all of you representing this. I'm going to get over here and introduce the rest of the team here. I'm starting with Nora Daly, the brand new board chair for the Illinois Arts Council Association. Nora. Joshua Davis Ruperto, who is the executive director of the Illinois Arts Council.
Hi, everyone.
Encarnacion Terrell, who is the deputy director of the Illinois Arts Council. Teresa Davis, who is a program director and part of the capital funding that we've got here in Quincy I switched. It's been a long day. Girls, it's been a long day. And Jackie Banks Mullum, also program director for the Illinois Arts Council. So format-wise here, we're really just going to open up the floor for questions and conversation because I think what you guys want to know the most from us is how we utilize the Illinois Arts Council, what we could do better, what are our challenges. So we're going to do a lot of that. But I thought maybe, Josh, you'd want to introduce yourself first and
Sure. I think Encarnacion's going to work on this with me as well. But I just wanted to give a quick introduction of our agency to those of you that do not know us, and then also give you a little breakdown of why we're here. So he's going to do the introduction first. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about the Arts Council?
Oh, yeah. I thought you were saying.
Yeah, no,
and I'm going to go really quickly because most of you are familiar with the Illinois Arts Council. But the first thing I want to say is that we know this is the place of origin of the first Arts Council. So it's great to feel like we're home. And we really appreciate it. We really appreciate the generosity that you guys have given us today and the openness in which you've informed us about your community, given us insight into what's happening here, and let us poke and peek into all the places that we were in today. As you know, the Illinois Arts Council is a state agency. We're the only statewide arts funder in the state. And we're charged with supporting arts activities and arts programs throughout the state. And we also do a little capital and other things. The way that we do that is through a variety of granting programs. Most of you are familiar with our flagship grant program, which is General Operating Support. We also provide general operating support to a program we call Partners in Excellence, which funds regional partners. And then we also provide general operating support for artists, art service organizations. We also have a variety of grants that provide that are project-related kinds of grants. We have a program called STARTS, which offers the opportunity to apply for funding for a 6-week hands-on residency of an arts group or artist, and that's open to schools, libraries, art centers, anywhere where people are gathering and they want to present some kind of hands-on workshop. We also have the Summer Youth Employment Program, which some of you apply for, and that provides the opportunity for arts organizations to hire pre-college age students to experience working in an arts organization for the summer. And that we hope that program inspires youth to look at employment in the arts and other places. So that's a great program for theater companies, for art centers, for people that have summer programs, etc. We also have support grants for individual artists. We have the individual artist support grant that has 2 tracks that you can apply in. One is for the creation presentation of artwork, and you can apply for that up to $4,500.
4,000.
4,000.
And then we have the professional track where artists can apply for funds for professional development in their career to attend a conference, a special workshop, create headshots if you're an actor, do marketing for your an art show, create resume, etc. We also have we also have the Community Arts Access Program, which Laura applies for, and that's a re-granting program where organizations can apply for funds to create their own grant programs within their community. And we also support local arts councils through general market support. Local arts councils and ComArts are really important grant programs for us because the local arts councils represent the statewide arts council. They are actually the boots on the ground in different various communities. We fund statewide, but the local arts councils know specifically what kind of funding is needed in a particular community. Some communities fund organizations, other communities fund buses to get to places because that's what they need in their particular community. But I just wanted to emphasize that the local arts councils and the re-granting program are really an extension of our mission to support arts activities and arts programs throughout the state. We get funding most of our funding is from the state, tax dollars. We are state employees, which means that we work for the public, we work for you guys. We all invest in our state through tax dollars, and the state uses those dollars to provide services, and the services and grants that we have come through that. We have additional funding through the National Endowment for the Arts, which is federal funding. They provide just under $1 million in funding for us. That's critical because that's part of the structure of how nonprofits and funding works in this country, especially for arts organizations. There's National Endowment for the Arts. There are regional arts organizations that are regional arts councils that oversee up to 7 different states. Ours is called Arts Midwest. Then there's the Illinois Arts Council, which is us. Below that are the local arts councils that work within their communities. And then below that are the nonprofits and the people that are doing the arts activities like you. So that's a basic structure of how we work.
That's great. Thank you. No, I think that was good. It was a good rundown of who we are as an organization. So let me kind of break down why we're here. So we all recognize that we've gone through kind of collective trauma, this pandemic, and it has drastically shifted our sector and the way that our sector operates. Our sector was one of the hardest hit sectors. And for many of us, though we always talk about, it's post-pandemic, many of us were still very much in the pandemic in relation to, getting our numbers back to where they were in 2019. This is a really interesting opportunity for the Illinois Arts Council Agency. We have new leadership under Nora, which we're very excited about. But we're also utilizing this moment to take a look at everything that we do and to adjust the programming that we've offered, pretty much the same programming for the past 50 years, to meet the needs of those as they come out of the pandemic. So instead of doing that from a top-down perspective where we're just saying, oh, we think we know what's best, we wanted to go to the communities, find out what's happening, find out what's struggling, or how you're struggling, and how our granting opportunities might be able to meet those needs. So that's why we're here. We're doing this tour in partnership with, we're actually doing an assessment of our general operating support grant in partnership with a national organization, the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies, they're going to do a really in-depth look at our general operating support grant through an equity lens. And we're not only talking about racial diversity, but we're talking about geographical diversity as well. And getting a sense of who we're currently leaving behind in this granting program and why we might be leaving them behind. And so that information through that assessment of the general operating support grant partnered with basically just boots on the ground. So we get to meet everybody and hopefully demystify the Arts Council in the process. We're hoping that we can take all of this information that we gather to rebuild our granting opportunities to better suit all of your needs. So I think we've met a good majority of you now, but I would love to know how many people in the room have directly applied to the Arts Council before? So quite a few of you. Great. And I'm just curious, I'd love to hear, trying to make this as informal as possible, I would love to hear what your experience has been coming to the Arts Council. And great things are lovely, but we would also love to hear about challenges or things that you find difficult when applying to us, things that we might be able to change in the future.
Do you want to just give a couple, just quickly, what we're hearing, so we do understand? I mean, I know
Yes.
we understand we have not done a great job of communication. The agency has not had anyone in a position in 15 years, hasn't sent out a press release, nothing. So there's a lot of programs probably that Edith talked about that you had no idea that we were kind of offering those opportunities. So along this track of kind of doing this listening tour and doing the data analysis with the national state arts agencies, we're also going to we know our communication is key. And we have someone that's part of the team that's going to be kind of our communications person. Our website is near impossible to find anything. We hear you, we know that. We also know the criteria, the application, the formula, all of that is going to be looked at through this equitable lens too. Because I know I've heard that feedback and kind of every place we go. Just know that those are really kind of glaring points that we're hearing across, but we really want to hear from you what the kind of needs are for your organization the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
May I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Alex King with Quincy Arts Center, the Director of Development. We love the Summer Youth Employment program. It's amazing. Students get a lot out of it. Just one thing though that I don't know if it can be changed, but the deadline to apply is in December, and then we often don't hear about it until April.
Too late.
And it would be nice to know a little earlier so we can get to those students before the end of the semester. So that we can let them know that we have that to apply for.
Perfect. Thank you.
That has been a challenge for us for that program to match the timeline of schools, and it has moved over the last couple of years. We keep inching
back as much as we can.
earlier and trying to get the awards notified earlier, because we know that it's difficult for school teachers or schools to be looking at an application at a certain period of the year and then not knowing until later whether they're going to be able to hire people or not. We used to announce the awards in June, then it was May, and so, but we need to fix that.
Thank you. If I could add to that question, one thing that I think the State Arts Council could be doing for youth in the arts is just one example, but Arts Quincy adopted an internal policy of paying a minimum wage of $15, including my interns, right? So when I have an intern in the summer. What role do you see the Illinois Arts Council as having to set the precedent or say this is the best practice when it comes to paying artists for their time? So our performers today and all of those things, paying artists for their time and setting like expectations for interns and things on that nature, policy-wise.
And that is something I believe that we do in a number of our programming.
In the Summer Youth Employment Program, you do have to pay that rate. And in the where we have grants in the START program, I think it's a $30 minimum.
I think it's a 50, isn't it?
50, you might be right. $50 minimum that you have to pay the artist. So if you're applying to the Arts Council to get funding to have an artist do a workshop, it has to be $50 an hour.
So maybe I'm not talking about the same thing, not grant requirements. I'm saying, has the council thought about putting out best practices?
Yeah.
This is what we aspire to, right?
Yeah.
We aspire
Yeah.
that every intern in the state of Illinois is at least making $15 an hour. That is an aspirational goal. I feel like that's a state level something you kind of can affect, even if we can't all live up to immediately. Right? It's
No, it's a
where we wanna
great
be.
point for sure, and that's one of the things that the Arts Council has kind of shied away from in the past, probably 30 years.
They didn't want to step their toe into
Yeah, we
it.
haven't gone too much into policy, but we are having that discussion now and listening to these things and seeing, what ways we might be able to support that endeavor on a
Or
state
just
level.
frame it up as best
Or frame it
practices,
up.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Part of
say,
the-
this is what we hope to see. This is,
Yeah.
it's a non-binding hope to see this, right?
I think it's a great idea because part of the challenge for us is that minimum wage is different in different counties and
Correct.
cities, and,
Yeah.
and so there's a state minimum which we would go with, but it's actually higher in some local communities than the state minimum is. So, but that's something that we need to look at in terms of best practices for artists, resources beyond just funding.
I think that goes over well with our boards. If we can say, well, the state is advocating that we have no unpaid interns, right? Or if we hire an artist, we always pay for their work. We've adopted that as a council, but I think it is a good practice across the state.
Or
No,
if you
that's-
hire a musician to perform, like Sarah played for us this morning,
great,
like that there would be a expected rate by which, because there's a lot of like, oh, couldn't you just come and play?
It's great exposure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
and you can't use our funds to say do a fundraiser and have an artist. You can't do that.
Right.
But I think maybe what we can do is look at possibly the website having some pages that address
Yes.
best practices
Yeah.
for artists, best practices for organizations, et cetera. So that's something that we could easily do on the website.
Yes. And I don't want to monopolize it in the same vein, best practices for things like credit card policies for nonprofits and those kind of things can be housed
Yeah.
on that website as resources for small
Yeah.
organizations
Yeah.
that we work with, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to reinvent that wheel. You guys got throw it to your best lawyers and say, here's a good credit card policy for a nonprofit. I'm gonna scratch out True story, I have one that I've given to all of these people.
That's great.
So
And that's good to know. I mean, these resources already exist. It might just be nice to be a
Library.
collection or a library, a place where people can go for that information. That's great. Have there been any major challenges that you or your organization has been facing post-pandemic that you think the Arts Council should be aware of and might need to address? Yes.
You mentioned the pandemic. One of the challenges we have is that there's so many diversions on the internet for people to turn to. And in some cases, you could actually take a virtual tour of a museum. What can we do to get people into brick and mortar museums?
So do you feel that some of that work that was done during the pandemic is actually now acting as a hindrance to get people back into your spaces?
It's part of a trend toward people being entertained and amused by things on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's like building back audiences. I know we got a presentation earlier about kind of half the audience is back pre-pandemic till now. So I think honestly it's across the board. We're hearing it everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think it's a communications kind of it's something that I'm hearing.
And supporting more activities that are about connectivity within a community,
Yeah.
I think is something we
To add to that, and just
Yeah.
learning about from our audience now, I feel like we're relearning about things that their priorities have changed, what they choose to do, what they spend their time doing, and figuring out what that is and meeting them there. And really, how do we meet their needs and learning what their needs are? I feel like that's like where we're at right now. It's just,
Have you learned anything in that work? Like, what have you been hearing?
we've learned that we need to do a better job of enticing people in. We're giving little free samples of workshops and things like that to get people back into the space and get into a group setting again and engaging in that way. So we're throwing things out there and we're figuring out what sticks and so that we can get more engagement.
In terms of there's always that tension in society with social media and dollars that you can spend for entertainment and relaxation. There's always that tension between commerce amusement parks, stores, etc., and museums and art centers, etc. There's always that push and pull and that fight there. I would say sometimes it's good to copy the capitalist part, meaning, Target does a great promotion. You could copy that similar kind of promotion because stores like Target copy museums and art centers and art. You go in there, there's a great display and it's an artist's display. But in terms of learning from what we've just gone through and how people are now siloed into Zoom and online and how do we get them away from that? Some of you have utilized technology in Zoom meetings and activities, concerts and different things like that. I think the way to get people back is to not do away with the Zoom thing, but to have that be an extension of your programming. So if you present something about an exhibition online, part 2 is actually go and see the real thing. That's not a solution, but that's just a recommendation in terms of how to manage some of that stuff to be flexible. Like, yes.
I'm Jack Freiberg. I'm president of the Historical Society of Quincy and Adams County. Thank you so much, overall, for the very generous grant we have received from you. I mean, you got a chance to tour our lovely building this morning, and the accessibility there by contemporary standards is not good. And that's the core of our project. And I certainly appreciate you coming this morning and doing all that. But to address this, the COVID stuff, we used to have a very active education program for kids there. Well, that all went by the wayside during COVID. And now what we're trying to do, because we have 2 very good properties, the John Wood Mansion and obviously the History Museum on the square. And what we're trying to do is promote kids to come to the fourth grade program at the mansion to learn a little bit about that early building that was built here in 1835. And then after they do that, then come down to the History Museum, which is obviously more artifact related, and tell them a little bit about, the artifacts through there, early Quincy, that type of thing, to give them to try and make that fit in with the mansion. But all of those programs were basically put kibosh on during all of the COVID rules that we had. So we're just now trying to build back a base that we had before based off what had happened during COVID. And I'm just saying it's taken us more time than we had liked to try and put all that back online. And we're just in the process of that. But I'm just saying that's one of the things that we were impacted by that we're trying to work with, and we're having quite a bit of success with it, actually. We just had 700 kids through in the last month.
That's great.
Wow.
So maybe to speak to a little bit of that, one of the biggest issues that all of our organizations face, including this one, is transportation in Quincy. Transportation is a perennial problem. If you gave me a bus, I could fill it all the time. But the Quincy Public Schools, for example, can't hire enough bus drivers right now. So even if we've got willing organizations to host them anytime, it's very difficult for us to get a bus driver who doesn't have somewhere else to already be. Last year, our superintendent was driving buses sometimes.
So it's not only just paying for the buses, it's actually finding
paying the
drivers.
buses is not a problem.
Paying for the buses is not a problem. We have no drivers to drive the buses.
That's so interesting.
We're finally having field trips again this year that we had not had since the
Which
shutdown.
was not a capacity of the arts. It was
Nothing to do with availability of buses or, a lot of it was just there were no drivers. It is a statewide issue, being able to hire. We don't have enough cooks, we don't have enough custodians, we don't have enough people coming back
So it
to
costs us
work.
about $50 to get from Quincy School to any of these organizations in the bus rental. So it's nothing. I mean, I pay for a lot of those, but it is a capacity issue for schools right now. We have kicked around the idea of an arts bus quite a few times, but I don't know how feasible it is. Again, I have to hire a bus driver, but it's something that we've kicked around several times. But transportation is a surprisingly big issue here. considering the size of the town, I would say.
Barbara Fletcher, I'm the executive director here at the Quincy Museum, and we offer probably 9 different educational classes for children, and we're in the same boat as the Historical Society. COVID cut us off completely from having children in the building. And we're starting to get kids coming back. We had almost 1,000 last year, which is very good for us. And again, it's a transportation issue. Most of the children who come here are either homeschool groups, which provide their own transportation, or they're actually coming from outside of the city of Quincy. Even the parochial schools in the city of Quincy, at least the Catholic schools, use city of Quincy,
School buses.
I can't talk today. Quincy Public School buses. They share the buses with the Quincy Public School System. So the Quincy Public School System buses and their drivers are just terribly overextended here. And so when a bus driver has to be picking up not only Quincy Public School students, but Catholic school students as well, it's ridiculous.
I realize it's kind of outside your scope in some respects, but,
Right.
but if you were talking
No, but it's good to know that
The
it's happening.
transportation, getting the kids here is an issue. When they can walk here, that's not a problem, but so many of the schools now, they just built beautiful new schools, but they're all way out on the edges of town. They're not neighborhood schools anymore where they can walk to the Historical Society or walk over here. They used to be able to, but
It's good to know that, even though it doesn't seem as though we directly can do anything with that. One of the things we've been talking about during the listening towards that, we're really looking at the holistic part of the arts community, and that we realize that the arts community is within a larger holistic community. And so, our area is the arts area, but we know that it doesn't just pertain to the arts, right? Because the arts are, creative engine, accessibility, quality of life. It goes beyond just the footprint of the arts. So knowing about the buses, as we sit here, we don't know, how we can relate to that.
But I mean,
But-
an arts bus or
Yeah, but it might be
But as we continue these conversations,
an arts bus or something that was
yeah.
Yeah.
a little bit more accessible to the teachers, the educational system, to get their students to and from our local organizations would just be absolutely wonderful.
So a bus for you to go and get them, or a bus for the school district to provide to come to you? Are you saying that you would house the bus, the arts bus? You are?
There has been discussions before.
I have a staff of 2. Unless I'm gonna get a bus driver license, right?
Yes. That's the problem, is to have a licensed driver.
So we consider bus driver, you got the bus.
We've got tons of buses. We just don't have any drivers.
That's okay.
So fun fact, I used to have a bus driver's license.
Yes, she was
But-
a bus driver.
But you could give me a bus tomorrow and I would have to hire a staff person. So if I want to bring this back to something that really is in your scope, staffing and capacity is an issue throughout the arts community, right? I don't have a development director and I don't have a bus driver. So you can hand me a bus, and I cannot utilize it, right? How would you advise any of our organizations to grow staff to feel confident? So we've had, say, a couple of good years. Say we're in a role where we've funded our programs well and we've got a little nest egg. How can I feel confident, or any of these guys feel confident adding a staff person? How do you feel? You just got yourself a marketing person.
Yeah, well, we had to fight for that one.
Same.
No, I don't know if I have an answer for a question like that. I mean, we tend to be granting dollars for an organization to help you kind of figure that out for yourself, which is why, or an organization like yours is so important to this community, because they have a resource that they could go to talk through ideas and kind of spitball, what the future could look like for their organizations. We tend to be primarily a granting organization. The fact that we know that this is an issue makes me think that, we need to, again, look at our funding formula, because the way that our funding formula currently operates is it takes in consideration, the amount of money that we receive from the state, which of course is very limited. The score that you get, if you do apply to us, you are reviewed by a panel of experts. And then it also takes in consideration last year's operating expenses. But what that means is, if you're the Art Institute, you're probably going to get a lot more money than if you are this small organization, in Cairo, Illinois. And is that the right model anymore? Do you know what I mean?
It perpetually keeps you.
Exactly. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at, is that funding formula possibly turning on its head. We don't know. But we need to recognize that, and I don't mean to call out the Art Institute, which I think is a wonderful organization in Chicago, but $40,000 to the Art Institute of Chicago doesn't mean anything. $40,000 to an organization in your community could be life-changing. And so we need to recognize that, and we need to see where we're making the biggest impact. And we know that. Yeah.
40,000 can impact a community generations, not just to keep it afloat. So if we flip over the paradigm and say, okay, it's not about funding organizations that have other resources and that have a huge population. It's really about looking at communities that don't have other resources and that have populations that are spread out that need more resources to actually access the arts and do activities.
I'd like to say something on that. Laura said a few times, like, if Arts Quincy had another staff person that our arts organizations could share. So, like, if you had a $40,000 budget to pay another person, we could possibly hire a grant writer, developer, somebody to help all the smaller organizations too. So
We talked about having an arts CPA, right? So we all employ different art.
Right, and what Josh was saying before is the old way we used to look at it is like, we give you the general operating support. If you need to hire someone, right?
Yeah.
But we realized, okay, we're only giving you $10,000. What can you do with $10,000, right? So if you had 40,000, then you could leverage that to get more money, more funds, and expand your staff. But utilize those funds in better ways.
And the other thing that we're going to be looking at, and you have it in here as your priorities, is the multi-year funding. Other states are doing it. We're behind on that, so that you can plan. Because I know sustainability and looking at the next 2, 3, 5 years is really challenging for most organizations, especially with uncertainty with audience and trying to build back and everything else. So I think the multi-year grant is a good opportunity. I do love this idea of like kind of working together for the smaller and mid-size, and maybe having a grants writer at your arts council. I mean, I think there's a lot of innovative ways for us to address the needs of each community. So I love these ideas. I like the brainstorming. And I mean, I'm just so impressed with your collaboration, and your kind of partnership is really outstanding.
Because the way that we're going to get through all of this is partnerships. I mean, that's kind of the way for the future. We need to recognize that shared resources, shared development person for multiple organizations. These are the types of things that we want to support in the future for sure. Jordan, you have a question?
Yeah, so I think you know this, but what I'll speak to is, the grants at this point look at last year's budget, and that's great. That doesn't talk about what our future needs are at all, and especially when it comes to hiring staff. It's risky, like even if we have the funds this year, to guarantee that we're gonna have them next year or the year after when we're so driven by season ticket sales or, what have you for each organization. So I love the idea of looking at multi-year grants just for that security, and I love the idea of looking at ways that we can grow our organizations and somehow that being factored into that grant application.
Yeah, and also in relation to multi-year funding, we recognize that because of the stipulations that are put on us both by the federal government and the state government, the application can be a little difficult. I mean, there's certain things that we want to simplify and we will simplify, but there are certain things that are always going to be a little bit of a struggle, and we know it's a capacity issue. And so doing that every year versus doing that every 3 or every whatever is going to be much better for the organizations that we're partnering with.
And also we understand every community has different kind of local foundations, community foundations, corporate partners. So, I think we do love that public-private partnership opportunity to, each community is different and unique, but I think that's a leverage point for us to kind of be able to work together.
Yes.
My name's Diane Lake, and I'm wearing a hat representing Friends of Lorenzo Bull House, which is kitty corner across the street from me. I also belong to AUW. I brought Judy along. She's on the board at AUW and on the board for Women's City Club. Those two organizations also support that and meet there. And I also belong to two arts organizations that I don't think anybody's here. The Artists Guild of Quincy and the Great River Watercolor Society that meets at QU at 4:30. And we have wished that there was a grant writer available to help, so I would 5 times support that if we had access to a small amount of time from a grant writer to help us figure out what to do and where to go and how to do it, it would be a great help to all of it. So I commend you with your idea.
Well, thanks. We Arts Quincy does offer grant writing workshops, and we can definitely reach out more to some orgs that maybe haven't gotten on those before. But those small org club-sized grants, those are good places for CAAA as that the Community Arts Access Program, as it expands, that I would play more, right? I would do more of these, the club-sized. Because of the structure of that program, it has to be matching. So their programs might not be $500, $1,000 matching, right? They might be take some $200 to go do something cool, but I'd like to be able to support that more too.
But we've been hearing the struggles in relation to that match too.
Yeah.
So we know that that's an issue, especially for a lot of our really small organizations around the state.
Right.
And so we're trying to figure out a solution for that moving forward.
Yeah.
So
And it could be by discretion of the free grantor, because certainly a program at the symphony is going to spend $500 like
yeah,
problem, but these little orgs could, but club-sized orgs can
Yeah.
benefit from that. Yeah, we have a lot of great clubs.
Are you saying that I could spend money?
We looked at Rich last time.
Spent before we could even know that we have it.
Our first fight breakout.
Get to spend $500 on.
Yes.
My name is Lexi Brumbaugh. I'm a high school art teacher at Quincy High, and just listening to this, supporting these organizations is helping my students get more involved in the community of art. So having them go and to do art shows or go visit colleges and being able to get the bus there, go have the money to do those things, I think is super important.
Do we fund any of the arts education? Any of our arts education funding go to the public schools then?
Public schools, they can apply for things that are outside the curriculum.
Yeah. So there's lots of opportunities to engage.
They're not well known.
I know.
Not well known, that's exactly what I was about to
I know.
say. Yeah.
and we also recognize that that's a capacity issue
Yeah.
for teachers as well. I
Right.
mean, you're probably drowning in all the work that you have to do right now. So the idea of writing a grant to us is a little difficult.
But there are significant dollars.
There, yeah.
The arts and foreign language.
Yeah. Have you ever heard?
We actually talked about that this morning.
Yeah.
Let me talk about that just a second. The Arts and Foreign Language Grant is a really difficult grant.
Mhm.
It's $150,000 for our art teacher step down grant. Our school has not applied for it, and the primary reason is it will take a referendum to step up. So right, it does.
Got it.
We can't use a grant to fund the short
Got it.
change that we have in staffing. We need at least 2 more art teachers, and we can't fund that with a grant because that's not forever sustainable to provide an FTE to the school district. So ours is going to have to be much larger than $150,000 to like endow a staff position. So that's like we're talking significant dollars and larger scale thing, but you know, providing the opportunities where I can say, hey Lexi, I heard about this, can you go see what, you know, and those are the things that we're trying to reach out farther for the kids, you know, right now at the high school and then working our way through.
What about some the STARTS programs, or you know, the Illinois Poet Laureate Angela Jackson? She started off her career and decided she wanted to spend a life in poetry when she got her first Illinois Arts Council grant to work at an elementary school for a semester. You know, is having artists being able to push in so it doesn't become more burdensome on the school. You know, on the you guys are there's so much you're doing right now, and kind of catching up on all of the past 2 years for a lot of these students is overwhelming for teachers. Is it helpful to have these, not only these programs where they can go to or people can come to you, but having kind of artists push in?
Well, that's something that the last time we met, we discussed about having like maybe like an artist in residence for at the elementary school for, you know, a set amount of time. And those if, that to start something, but the big picture is that we need to solve the fact that we have 0 K through 3 art teachers in our schools.
Yeah, and ISB, I'm going to talk a little bit out of school here, but I don't believe they have an arts
No, they don't.
or an arts liaison for us.
Right.
I think they've just
I think
established
they're
arts
trying
liaison
to
or
start
something, but
that,
it's-
is what I've heard, but I haven't.
Well, there's also a
contacted them.
discussion about the ESSA percentage is potentially going to come into play
Yes, and
down the road.
that's like turning the corner, like because ESSA is becoming. I've also served on the Illinois Music Education State Board. I'm going back on that board.
Oh,
So
okay.
What is it called? The
Illinois Music Education Association.
ILMEA.
ILMEA. ILMEA. Just say all the letters. And I'm going back on that board, but there was a huge conversation amongst the music education world too that ESSA is going to affect all of us, especially in the fine arts education. So
And actually Jerome Grand, who's program director who oversees the arts and foreign language program, goes to that conference and presents at that conference. He was just there.
He was just up in January.
But I just wanted to, I just wanted to make something clear. The arts and foreign language program is a 3-year program.
Right.
You can apply for up to $150,000 the first year. The second year you get 75%, and then it's the last year is I think 25%. So it's a sliding scale. We can't right now as we sit here. We don't do endowments, obviously, but it's over
it would be something to help
$200,000.
us get started with the process to work towards the other.
But then it could be
Possibly.
nothing in year
Planning.
4, though.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're saying.
So
Like, there's no
we need to do some
sustainability. It's a
invest- yeah.
referendum, and
But what I'm saying is that $250,000 dedicated to a school district for 3 years goes a long way towards
Can
paying
move
for
us
the
in the right
instruments and all the other stuff, and you could leverage that.
Yeah.
It's
I
kind
understand what you're saying.
you know what? It's kind of like the bus driver problem.
How many bus drivers can we pay for with?
Who wants
So
to
I
get a
will tell you
license?
to kind of wrap that because I don't want to go too far down that
Yeah.
particular rabbit hole. But
Right, that's a whole other
Um,
world.
Yeah.
that I will
With
say
full
that we
funding.
looked into the dollars that it would take. We estimate that it'll take $1.1 million in endowment to fund a single position, and to be able to draw off enough to pay a salary.
Yeah.
The arts and foreign language grant cannot go into that endowment. So it is hard to leverage it to grow that single position endowment. We have 5 elementary schools in the public school system. It'd be hard to just do that with one teacher, though we do share teachers between schools and whatnot. So we can talk more about that at a different time.
That's a lot. It's
It is a big challenge. Yes. It is a big challenge, but maybe the regulatory piece that we could look at is, could that go into an endowment? Is there a rule change that could say,
Yes.
okay, what Quincy really needs is to start an nest egg, start a,
this is good to know. This is what we're listening. This is what we're doing. That
Yes.
We're listening, and
Yeah.
whether it be organizational support, our arts education, our individual artist opportunities, is to hear the challenges. What are the blockers? Why aren't
so if we change that rule, for example, we have had amazing community support. We have Friends of Performing Arts has done a huge amount of work for the music side. We have huge community support when we can match funds. If I say I got a 2-to-1 arts council match, if we can raise $200,000, that is how we motivate our business community to pile of money, right? But if we can't put that in an endowment to grow a position that we could actually hire with our superintendent,
it makes
you
sense?
see what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
That money can't go to that.
Yeah.
So I wonder if I could change the subject a little
Yes,
bit.
Go ahead.
Yeah, of course.
Another problem that we have, those of us that have an audience, but probably most everybody here, whether it's trying to get membership in your organization or to get people to come to your programs, is getting the word out. And I already talked to Josh about this when we were having coffee this morning. But this is a big issue for, I think, just about anybody. Now it's no longer radio and newspaper that we have to contact to get people to know about our things. It's all the different social media. It's banner ads on web pages. It just goes on and on and on. And all of that is very expensive. In fact, my assistant, we keep adding hours. She's now the marketing coordinator, now a 30-hour position. But I don't really feel like we've gone that much farther. It's just a matter of this is what's needed in order to try to make sure that people know about our programs. And I would love it if there was one branch of your granting that would help us to be able to get funding for marketing, specifically for marketing.
I had a partnership with one of our marketing companies here in Quincy through a capacity building grant through the Tracy Foundation several years right before the pandemic. It was actually the season that included the pandemic. And they pushed us, like they would come to our office and say, I've got your banner ads for the next concert, look at these and see what you think. And you're like, oh, thank you. You know, because we were trying to do that in-house, which is something we're not really trained how to do. You know, it's kind of beyond our regular scope to design all these advertisements. Designing an ad occasionally, that's fine, I can do that. But having to do constant ads and constant posting and everything, it's just become basically a full-time job for one of our 2 FTEs.
Maybe one of the relationships that we could leverage to work on a problem like that would be the Salesforce relationship. I've seen some pretty good success in university systems using template-based, right? So Canva-based usually, or Salesforce-based platforms.
And I have an employee who knows how to use Canva and everything, but that's not the point. It's to get somebody who does this like a media company professionally. This is their whole existence. To have them partner with us to try to help us get the word out that we even exist is really. When I first started my job, I used to go into Walmart or the line, and I would say, "Are you going to the symphony concert?" And people would be like, "Quincy has a symphony?" I'd be like, "We've been here 60 years." You know, so I just think, and it's become harder and harder and harder. So this is something kind of newer that's happening in our society that I think maybe you guys can help.
That's great.
That's good.
Training, technology,
That's
we're
a major
in a new
change,
world, and it's good to hear this. There's someone back there who's holding a hand up.
Hi there. My name is Kristen Ramsire. I'm the choir director and vocal music director at Quincy University, but I'm also serving on the Quincy Civic Music Association board, so that's kind of who I'm representing today. And related to what Jane was just talking about, we have been doing a lot of talking about restructuring how our organization brings professional level performing arts ensembles and musicians to Quincy. Our motto is to bring the world to Quincy. And so over the last several years, these professional performing ensembles that we bring to the community have really upped their game as far as their marketing and how they do business for the sake of their musicians and their performers. And so all of this to say, we really need to do the same, and we've been talking about how we should be restructuring in order to negotiate contracts and to do all these things that are relatively new to us and are outside of my expertise as a music educator, right? We do have a wide variety, not just musicians on our board, but also, there are lawyers and audiologists and, all kinds of different people on our board, which is wonderful. But just having some kind of guidance, I have notes here, sorry. Guidance regarding also social media marketing, but like restructuring our organization so that kind of what we've been talking about, so that it's
Civic
not.
Music Association is another all-volunteer organization.
Yeah, right.
So they're doing huge work with a changing board all of the time.
Zero step.
Right, and we don't have enough board members to do all of these things, but also not the expectation or the experience to negotiate contracts, to deal with,
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of that
ensembles.
in the last, since the pandemic, where organizations are trying to figure out how to restructure themselves.
I mean, we're doing it right now. That's why.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that's an important point. It's not only related to the pandemic, it's also related to the changing world and the importance of technology and everything that we do. But yeah.
So one of the things Civic Music Association asks Arts Quincy on the regular is, how do I hire some Illinois artists? And that's another big challenge for us. So, when we're talking about website redesign, it would be fabulous to just say, I need somebody who plays the steel drums and lives in Illinois.
Yeah.
We actually, you're hitting on a major problem that we have that we've already been talking about, and that is that no one knows that we have an arts tour roster. Years ago, the Arts Council used to have the arts tour roster.
I'm part of that. We were approached.
You're part of the Illinois presenters.
And presenters, and we didn't have to, when you don't know what you don't know. So we're just here in Forgotonia, and but I remember specifically getting the phone call that it was called the Greenberg String Quartet, and we were called and said, like, we think your community would be a great place to have a 6-month artist residency of the Greenberg String Quartet. Would you like to have them? And I said, well, we have to check with all these people, and we checked, but had we not gotten that phone call from the Illinois Arts Council, that was really kind of my first knowing about that we even had an arts council. But they reached out to us because we didn't know enough to call and say, hey, is there a string quartet that can come here? And they were here with us and Quincy University for 6 months. And they played in all the public schools and all the stuff. But we wouldn't have known that opportunity without the Arts Council. And probably because George Irwin was still alive at that time, they reached out to this area. But I'm just wondering, like down in Cairo, Illinois, or all down south here, like, you know, we don't always know what, like the Chicago and everything, all the resources that, you know, Josh, you talked about being equitable there, you know, like there's a lot that we don't even know that we don't know or we don't have because of the regions that we're in and things like that. But I remember thinking that was the most wonderful thing because we would have known about the Greenberg Quartet had not somebody reached out and said, would you like these people? Or would you like the steel drum band to come and be there for 6 months? Would you like to be, you know, there's people that know these things that they're there, but I think you guys, someone in your organization should be reaching out and letting people in places know that that exists. And would you like that? Would it work out for your community to have this?
We do have online, we do have a Arts Tour roster that has a menu of mostly performing arts groups, everything from African dance to little ensembles. That you could go to our website and it has a list of the group, what they do, how much, what area of the state they cover, what their fees are, etc. We're expanding that to include all the interdisciplinary arts, visual arts, etc. But it hits on a key point, and that is that the agency can do a better job in terms of our public footprint and getting the word out in communications, whether it's an e-newsletter or going to our website or staff going out throughout the state to do workshops and you know, have these town halls like we're having right now.
Well, and having to somehow vet all of those arts or people that come and want to be a part of your roster.
Well, we're partnering with another organization to help us do that work because it is, of course, a capacity issue. You know, we did that for a number of years, and as our staff dwindled and our budget was cut 50%, we're down 50% from even where we were, I think, in 2007. So we lost a lot of the work that we were doing previously, the work that you're talking about now.
How did you write that down?
So I mean, that is a thing that. Again, back to partnerships, you know, that's why partnerships are important. We might not be able to do it, but then we could do it in partnership with this organization that then feels like they are being built up because they're given this responsibility, which makes them eligible for different types of funding.
And it creates a network because we work with the Illinois Presenters, which is organizations that present groups, et cetera, that we fund. That organization now is the Illinois Presenters. Volunteer, and what they do is they work on the arts roster and putting together. So it's Illinois Presenters looking for Illinois artists to put on the roster so other kinds of organizations can have access to those arts.
I don't know if on your roster if you thought about including a list of composers that are from Illinois. Both of our organizations have commissioned works, you know, even in recent years, and so that might be something that would be. Because we actually thought through it. Well, we could use, but I only could think of 2 or 3 that were actually from Illinois. So that might be.
We also have a long history of fellowship winners in music composition that we could always share with you as a resource as well.
So when you're thinking about the logistics of that website, I would keep in mind searchability by not just the genre, right, that you're talking about, but by fee. So, for instance, when I want to hire somebody this summer, I'll say, I got $3,500 to spend to bring something awesome to Quincy, and it needs to be relatable to the Black community. So I would love to be able to pull up a list and say, hey, here's some ideas.
And that's what we can do.
I want to ask a question of you because you name dropped the Art Institute.
Sure.
One of the partnerships that I've always just imagined is making rural people a program of those giant organizations. Have how can we make connections to say bring Art Institute installations to Quincy or Chicago Symphony to Quincy, where it is part of their mission to reach us. We're out here, way out here. What if they were trying to give to us?
Kind of like Smithsonian sites.
What if they wrote to them to say we wanted to go to Quincy?
Shift the paradigm.
Well, their mission is to serve the world. So we as public need to hold them to serve their mission. But I think that we were talking about this earlier today. There's a project in Chicago called the Folding Map.
Yep.
And an artist took the city of Chicago and folded it. And when she folded it, it was the north side and the south side that got paired together. And so she paired communities together from the south side and north side. Some communities were middle class, wealthy communities, other communities were underserved, etc. Those communities created partnerships around the resources that they have, the needs, the cultural things. And we were actually talking about what if we did that on a statewide basis? What if we had a folding map of the state and partnered different organizations in different cities with different communities and stuff? And what could benefits be from that?
Like a mentorship program. I would love to have the Art Institute as a mentor.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept too, as we're talking about these partners in excellence, these large institutions. I think that's a really lovely thing to think about is, what is it that we're asking of them for these small amount of grant dollars that we do give them?
We are a partner in excellence as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But still, it's an interesting conversation about how we might be able to utilize some of those larger institutions.
I have another question. What could we do as a community to help the Arts Council be more than half funded? Like the
Reach
fact
out
that
to your
you-
legislators.
We actually have an event for you.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm sure many of you have already heard us talk about One State Together in the Arts. One State Together in the Arts is a gathering that we do in partnership with Arts Alliance Illinois. They're the statewide advocacy group. And basically, it's a gathering of arts organizations and artists to talk about best practices and, gather and steal from each other, of course. We're doing it this year in Springfield, and we're actually going to pair it with Arts Alliance Illinois also does a Capital Day, where they're going to help you meet with your legislators and also help you learn how to speak to legislators if that's new to you. So I think that this could be a wonderful learning opportunity for you to do that type of work, because that's how you're going to really make an impact for your own community, is talking to your legislators.
Remember in the beginning, I mentioned that we use our tax dollars. They're your dollars, they're our dollars that we invest in the state. So the way that you can help us is by going to One State, going to Capital Day to learn how to advocate for all of our tax dollars to be used in specific ways. And if it's the arts, then that's what we should do. And that's one way you can help us.
And if you are interested in attending that conference, we will be providing scholarships for people to attend.
Partners this week.
Yeah, so we'll help cover the cost of travel, lodging, and any fees in relation to attending the conference.
Mm-hmm. And one of the, go ahead.
I'm Joseph Newkirk. I'm representing the Friends of the Log Cabins. You've taken a lot of very specific questions. Hope you can field a more general one.
Sure.
As we all know, the state of Illinois has been in dire financial straits for many years, mostly because of unfunded pensions. I just read recently that the credit rating for the state has gone up for the 6th consecutive time.
So Alex says.
Does that bode well for the future?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Very much. Would you like to?
Would you like to say anything?
Go ahead, Alex.
Very much so. It does. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So every time that our credit rating goes up, we basically are able to borrow more money, and very shortly, yes, that's good. That's good for us. That's good for the arts community. It means we can invest more in things like arts education, things of that sort. So yes, it's good.
Yeah.
Guys, what else was he gonna tell us about? He's gonna come and talk, because I haven't heard anything.
Is there anything you would like to brag about in relation to the
They're
government?
doing a great job.
I will say one of the other things that when working with the governor in the governor's office when he appointed me to this position was looking at how the governor's office supports the creative sector. Last year, our budget was, say, $15 million, but in the governor's total budget was a $200 million investment into the creative sector. So one of the things that we're working on is really meeting with all the other departments, whether it's ISB, whether it's IDOT, there's money in transportation money, there's the Illinois Capital Board that has money, there is DCEO, which I know a lot of the workforce development money. The Arts Alliance of Illinois is going to be doing some outreach to help you receive some of those ARPA fundings that the governor set aside for $50 million for the creative sector for lost revenues. So there is a lot of resources coming in from the governor. And so the Arts Council is one of the ways that the governor's office supports the community, but there's a lot of other buckets. So one of the things that I'm working on is with the governor's office is creating that kind of menu and like kind of the interagency partnership to say, if I'm you guys are small businesses, nonprofits are small businesses and communities. They are anchors. You can see the revitalization that's happening in downtowns across the state. And it's really due in large part to everyone here in the room. So I think we also need to talk of ourselves a little bit differently and talk about ourselves as a part of that economic impact for the community. So, and next generation. So
the program that she mentioned, the ARPA funds that they were just starting to find out about. Arts Quincy will be a hub for all of West Central Illinois. So I think I cover 17 to 20 counties. I don't know if that's quite figured out yet, but I will be your contact for that. So Arts Quincy is going to make that a program this year. It'll be fun.
Yeah. But it's good. It's money. It's resources that we need, and it's hopefully the application won't be that hard.
Sometimes it can be difficult going through Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, but we do have Arts Alliance Illinois, the advocacy group that we talked about. They're going to be helping people with that endeavor. Yeah. And of course you have Laura as well, which is great.
And we're advocating for things like, for instance, some of you got COVID grants in various places. We're advocating for, the funds that are coming out not to penalize you for having gotten PPP or ERP or shuttered venues or the different programs that were out there. So that is at least my piece in it, is advocating for what I know you guys face as far as getting a piece of those funds. So,
and just so you know, one of the reasons those funds are not coming through us, they're going through DCEO, is because they're for nonprofits and for-profit organizations, the entire creative sector. So, share that with your friends as well.
Because
some buckets for the hotels as well. So it's like a whole sector.
Yeah, the hotels is a separate one. But I mean, for the creative sector, the other thing is, we don't talk about in our work, but even just kind of the delicious lunch we had today, our culinary artists. They're artists too in their community. You want the coffee house, you want the brewery, all of those are activating art spaces too. So I do think DCEO doing the for-profit and nonprofit is really important because those are community anchors too that need the help. So
part of the creative sector.
Yeah.
In a different light.
Yeah.
We just happen to work in a not-for-profit creative sector, but the creative sector is, as we were saying before, part of the holistic community.
Is there anything that you would like to brag about that's going on in your community right now that we should know about?
All I do is
for these people.
Throw something out. I'm Carl Warma from Quincy University, just down the street, and we are launching a new arts management degree.
Oh, great.
Which, of course, is going to involve a number of you folks in terms of hoping to be able to place some of our students.
Great.
And really looking to keep those people connected to the Quincy community.
That's great.
So that's a new thing.
Congratulations. That's great.
I'm Matt Huff. I'm the president of the Quincy Concert Band. We have expanded our offerings from 2 concerts a year to this year we're offering our first kind of chamber concert. A few years ago we created a small ensemble group for all of our volunteer musicians that they develop their own ensembles and they can play in the community. And this year we're finally able to kind of move from 40 plus years of doing only 2 concerts. Now we're expanding to 3 concerts, and we're pretty excited about that.
Congratulations. The music scene is very vibrant here. I mean, a lot of musicians in this room, but also just the number of groups. It's really inspiring.
I'll give a shameless plug. I'm Kent Embry with the Community Foundation here locally, and one, I wanted to just espouse the power of endowments. That I've heard several people talk about endowments, and our Community Foundation actually has the power and the capacity to house endowments here locally and keep private money local to continually serve perpetually into the future in this area. We serve 4 counties in Illinois and 8 counties in Missouri. A lot of those are rural, but we are focused around Adams County. The other thing I wanted to mention is I heard you say, you didn't say removing barriers exactly, but you said trying to find the people that you were leaving behind. I think that's what you said. And I think that's something that's really poignant to us at our foundation right now. We recognize that we have some issues with accessibility to our grant applications, and our reporting is probably way more elaborate than it needs to be for the size grants that we're able to give. But we are making baby steps this year. We're rebranding our competitive grant program as a community grant program this year. And so we're trying to take some baby steps in the right direction and have a friendlier approach to our local nonprofits. That program does open up tomorrow. And so it also has a shortened deadline this year. So most of the people in this room are eligible for grants from that program, and it will end. The due date is May 1st this year instead of June 1st.
And could you repeat your name?
My name is Kent Embry, the Community Foundation, serving West Central Illinois and Northeast Missouri.
Yeah, we'd love to create a dialogue with you and keep talking about different ways that we might be able to partner.
That would be fantastic. I've heard several things that I think we would be interested in talking with you about.
Great. That's great.
I have a question. I guess we're bragging now, but I'm gonna backtrack. Sorry. I'm curious with like having representation from the governor's office here today and knowing some of those priorities of like behavioral health, childcare, all of those kind of things, and knowing the place that the Arts Council and all of these organizations that are represented here today, the impact that we collectively could have on the behavioral health and on the programs that we can provide to childcare centers. I'm just wondering, like, is that conversation happening to be able to have some of that?
Trying to, but that's one of the things that we need to be better about. We need to tell our stories. I mean, everybody in this room knows that the answer to that is the arts, right? Is community and the arts and culture. But we're really terrible at telling our story.
Like I said, having them here today or having that, Brit, is that conversation, how can we have that conversation? How, you were born and raised here in these arts.
No pressure.
How can we advocate for ourselves, not just put it all on their shoulders to, I can't just call.
No, that's why I'm here. Is listen, take notes, all that. But I would also note that over the last 2 weeks, the governor's been all over the state promoting his the Early Childhood Initiative, which is hundreds of millions of dollars to sort of go toward capital investments, make sure that every child in the state of Illinois has a preschool spot if that's something that they want, and that's very much a priority for him right now. So.
Like I said, for the rest of us, we don't all have preschools.
Yeah.
But we know, for my own children even, 3-4 years old, they would benefit from having, a state-of-the-art children's museum, as would all the children. Right?
And that's
a good plug.
Tap in,
That arts wing.
There's a makerspace.
Yes. Makerspace.
That's right.
And that's all very much part of, like I said, the capital investments that are part of the plan that he proposed to the General Assembly. It's just about, like you said, calling your legislators, making sure they know that you're in favor of this, and getting it through the General Assembly here in a couple months.
Yeah, you don't realize the power you have.
Yeah, and this and also we did have this past year, and Jackie facilitated, and with some of the Historical Society was a beneficiary of some of the capital grants. But capital is something that we're hearing across the board, and it is you sitting down together as a community and saying these are our priorities. We're there to support you, but it's also educating your local leadership here to say, you know, the mayor was very supportive this morning, and someone from a staff of members I met from the state senator's office. You have great leaders here. So like coming together and saying, okay, I think we have X amount of capital projects, and getting them in front of the, your local legislators, then they'll bring that, to the General Assembly. But there are ways for us to kind of work together, but it's really, it's going to be a collective.
And I should
Make it
say
happen.
that the 1.5 million that we did get from the History Museum, Jill Tracy was particularly instrumental in that.
Yes.
So as that happened, I reached out to Jill, and she was so willing to work with us. So while we might not all be able to text the governor, who I now have yours, so you're
Same thing.
but we can call Jill, and she will absolutely be here and advocate for us, and she gets it. I really believe that. I think Randy too. I don't work as closely with Randy, but I think they get it. So, like you said, it's just a matter of making those relationships.
And it seems like you're well set up. You've got the projects in place. You know what you want to do. It's just a matter of presenting that to the right people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while we're doing the bragging, I just want to, I don't know if I ever welcomed everybody here.
Thank you so much.
So as you are cut loose from the meeting portion, feel free to wander around the first floor. It's restored high style Victorian. It was built in 1891, so feel free to wander around. Our second floor houses exhibits mostly on local history, but we're in the middle of our winter tear down. So we're tearing down certain exhibits and we're cleaning and repainting some rooms, so our second floor is pretty much a mess. Our third floor is primarily for children. We have a dinosaur room, a Native American room, and a wildlife room. So we do invite you to wander through, and I think Arts Quincy has refreshments in the kitchen that they will invite you.
Barbara, could you say something about what's happening on the second floor, what's coming in April?
Sure.
With all
I'll
of
let
the
Nancy
partner
talk about that. Nancy is.
Sorry, Nancy. It's great. It's great.
Is our curator of collections, and she's been working primarily on our exhibits. I'm just the executive director. I just.
From the financial stuff.
She's working on our exhibits right now, so she can talk to you about what's going on up on our second floor.
Yeah, so this season, we're going to celebrate our arts and culture here in Quincy. And that ranges from celebrating different organizations, so QCT's here, the Arts Center, Arts Quincy, Music Center, or the CMA, sorry. And so they provided us items from their organizational history, whether it's photographs, newspaper clippings, programs, anything that shows the actual history of the organization in object form. And so that's going to go out there. We also are going to have some architectural salvage from different places here in Quincy. We have some items from our house up there right now. Can't see it, sorry. But we are getting some items from the Historical Society, some larger items, and then we are doing a little bit of folklore as well. So we're trying to cover the whole circle of arts and cultures and the humanities, and ask people, what do you think is art? Is it just that 3D dimensional item, pottery? Is it painting? What is it? Is it craftsmanship? Actually getting the community to think about what is art, what is here in the community that you can go see, things along that line.
That's wonderful.
A lot of these organizations are celebrating big years this year, last year, or the coming year, so it was a nice way to celebrate them.
And to make us cleaner basement.
Cleaner basement.
Do we have any more questions, comments? Comments on each hat? Okay, go ahead. Okay.
I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Kathleen Hildebuck. I'm the director of the Quincy Public Library. And so we are adjacent
our partners.
And you can come to us directly if you want to chat with any of us. Please do, because we have some programs that you can apply for.
Okay, we'll do that.
I would just like to say thank you all so very much for being here. I can't tell you what a pleasure it was getting to know all of you and all of your organizations. And I'm really excited about the idea of coming back here and actually getting to see some shows. It's been a long time coming for us to be in your community. And so thank you so much for inviting us and being such warm hosts.
I want to give a couple more thank yous before we go, because we had a lot of partners to make today happen. A big thank you to the Historical Society of Quincy and Adams County, to the folks right here at Quincy Museum. Our treats today were provided by the Yum Factory. Don't miss them, they're delightful. Underbrink's Bakery, tiramisu and the patio. My board of directors, killer guys, nice work. Jenna Seaborn, the Heart of Arts Quincy and Arts Quincy magazine. JC Spick, who's just run the show. She's the events planner extraordinaire. And all of you guys, because it really is amazing what you do, and it's been a really wonderful to show it off a little bit. So nice job. Grab some snacks and we'll walk around, and thank you. Round of applause for everyone.
Thank you.